Presidential candidate Nikki Haley spent the day yesterday trying to clarify comments she made after facing widespread backlash for not including slavery as a driving force behind the Civil War. Here's the exchange she had with a voter in New Hampshire back on Wednesday.
What was the cause of the United States Civil War?
Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was? I'm sorry?
I'm not running for president. I wanted to see your
That's a good thing.
On the cause of the Civil War.
I mean, I think it always comes down to the role of government and what the rights of the people are. And I will always stand by the fact that I think government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. Government doesn't need to tell you how to live your life. They don't need to tell you what you can and can't do. They don't need to be a part of your life. They need to make sure that you have freedom. We need to have capitalism. We need to have economic freedom. We need to make sure that we do all things so that individuals have the liberties so that they can have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do or be anything they want to be without government getting in the way.
Thank you. And in the year 2023, it's astonishing to me that you answer that question without mentioning the word slavery.
What do you want me to say about slavery?
No, you've answered my question. Thank you.
Next question.
What do you want me to say about slavery? So yesterday, Governor Haley spent a lot of time trying to clarify what she said.
Yes, I know it was about slavery. I'm from the South. Of course you know it's about slavery.
Of course the Civil War was about slavery. We know that. That's unquestioned, always the case. We know the Civil War was about slavery. But it was also more than that. It was about the freedoms of every individual. If it requires clarification of saying, yes, the Civil War was about slavery, I'm happy to do that.
Two of Haley's Republican primary rivals, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, had some thoughts on this yesterday.
You know, I noticed that Nikki Haley has had some problems with some basic American history. She's asked a very simple question and responded with just a really incomprehensible word salad about this and that. And, you know, well, she asked the voter, what do you want her to say about this or that? And then now is taking different positions in this. And so I just think that this shows this is not a candidate that's ready for prime time.
If someone asked me what the cause of the Civil War was, it's easy. It's slavery. And by the way, you don't have to take my word for that. When South Carolina passed its resolution to secede from the Union, the first reason they gave was the other states' resistance to allowing slavery to spread to the Western territories. So even if you're from the South, so you know these things, you should also know why your own home state seceded from the Union.
So, Rev, Nikki Haley spent the entire day yesterday trying to deal with her comment a couple of days ago in New Hampshire. What we didn't hear there at the beginning of the day yesterday, she said it was a Democratic plant, that somebody from the Biden campaign or somewhere had pushed a plant into the audience to ask that question. Well, that's a town hall. You're asked questions from all kinds of people, all different ways. And let's stipulate that shouldn't be a real hard one to answer. And there was something about the way she then sort of asked almost mockingly, well, what do you want me to say about slavery? Maybe that was an abomination and a blight on our history whose impacts are still being felt today. There are a lot of easy answers to that question. But what does it say first about Nikki Haley, but also about the Republican Party today, that she felt compelled to sort of pull back, thinking about who she might offend if she criticized slavery, for God's sakes?
Well, if there was someone there that helped the Democrats, it was Nikki Haley. It wasn't whoever was in the audience. Because if you look at her answer, she talked to two things that was most troubling. Was one, she said freedom to do what they want to do. Well, in the days of the Civil War, that's what they were arguing. We have the freedom to maintain our slaves. They're our property. So what do you mean freedom to do what they want to do? The Civil War was to say you're not free to own other people and to enslave people. And secondly, when she say, what do you want me to say about slavery? Like even then she is, as you asked the question, playing to a crowd that she either is with that crowd or she is afraid of that crowd. Either one, it makes her unfit to be president because she's saying, I'll ask you what you want me to say about slavery. I'm not going to take an affirmative here saying, oh, wow, I should have said slavery was the center. So when given the opportunity to correct herself, she threw it back to the questioner because she's either, again, afraid of the MAGA crowd or that's her feeling. Let's not forget, we had to march many times on her as governor of South Carolina to even take the Confederate flag down, and she didn't do that until 9 people were massacred in a South Carolina church. But John, you and I spent time in South Carolina, and the whole atmosphere in the last couple of weeks around this campaign has kind of evaded the fact that there's been a war on DEI and there's been affirmative action. And now this has brought race right back central in the campaign for the Republican nomination. I find it ironic Ron DeSantis, who's banning Black history in Florida, is raising a question about Nikki Haley and her not answering a simple question. Do you think this, though politically, helps or hurt any of the Republican candidates if race becomes the issue going into this New Year's weekend?
Well, so much to say here, Rev, and one thing to say is it's always most amusing to watch Ron DeSantis standing in the dark, stammering and stuttering and saying that Nikki Haley is not ready for prime time. I would say, or suggest that Ron DeSantis, even in attacking Nikki Haley, demonstrates yet again that he, in fact, is not ready or even lit for prime time. I think the one thing that just to dispense with, it does not matter who was in the audience or why they asked the question. It's like attacking the motives of the questioner is totally irrelevant. It's an easy question. She should have been able to dispense with it quickly. It would have caused her actually no damage even with the MAGA right, for simply to say, you know, of course, the slavery was the cause of the Civil War. Next question, no one would have even paid attention to it. We would have moved on. And I think it speaks to something that Chris Christie has been saying most forcefully on the campaign trail. And I'm not saying this to puff Christie up, but he's been pointing out over and over again that Nikki Haley has been, in fact, very timid in the way that she's gone after Donald Trump. She is the hot Republican rival to Trump right now, the one person people say has a chance to maybe beat Donald Trump in New Hampshire and then be a viable alternative to him. But this shows something that has come up again and again with Nikki Haley, is that she is a timid politically. She doesn't have her footing. She has had a hard time navigating this position. How is she kind of keep enough of the MAGA part of the party on her side? She doesn't want to offend them. It's clear that she was worried about that here, even when I think she was wrong. I think she could easily, as I said, dispense with this quickly. And I'll ask Matt Lewis whether he agrees with that in a second. But this is the core weakness of Nikki Haley. She is, on paper, and in a lot of this very prospective polling, the strongest general election candidate Republicans have against Joe Biden. But she does not have Matt Lewis. She does not ever exhibited throughout her whole career. She's exhibited a lot of talent, a lot of promise, a lot within the Republican Party as a newcomer Republican, but she's also exhibited often in key moments a kind of lack of political guts that you can trace over the whole biography that she's had. The way she started out, how she moved, becoming kind of a Trump supplicant, then sort of a Trump critic, then a Trump supplicant again, and now trying to weave between those things. That's what's got her in trouble here, is that she doesn't really know who she is or where she stands in the modern Republican Party. What say you?
I think that's exactly right. And look, a lot of us kind of never Trump conservatives were skeptical of Nikki Haley because she has wavered over important moral questions, including Donald Trump. But I would say once the debates began, John, the very first Republican primary debate, Nikki Haley came out swinging against Donald Trump, attacked him for raising the debt And I think at that point, I thought, wow, okay, Nikki Haley finally maybe has figured out what her brand is, who she is, what her message is going to be, and more importantly, who her constituents are. And she has done a pretty good job within the context of the last few months of the campaign of actually being that person. And if you think about what Nikki Haley needs to do, we are now 2 weeks away from the Iowa caucuses, 3 weeks away from New Hampshire. Nikki Haley doesn't need to be worried about. By the way, I think this is the fundamental mistake that Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis both have made. They think they can win MAGA voters. They can't. If you love Donald Trump, you are not going to vote for somebody else, certainly not Nikki Haley. So Nikki Haley shouldn't even be worried about appeasing someone who wants to relitigate the Civil War. Those are not Nikki Haley voters. Nikki Haley was in Berlin, New Hampshire, running to try to win New Hampshire, not, Alabama, not Mississippi, New Hampshire. Her core constituency are not Trump voters. She needs to win independents in New Hampshire and non-Trump center-right voters in New Hampshire. That should be her top priority.